Welcome back to my channel, best friends. My name is Roman and we are here for another story time. So this is going to be season 1, episode 3. Not sure how many of these I'm going to do, but if you have seen the first 2 story times on my TikTok and YouTube, then you'll see that we're channeling or chronicling my life from the time I was about 18, 19 when I left California and moved to New York. So when we last left off in episode 2, we talked about me not having a place to stay after my first semester in uni and what I did then. So basically, Sylvia's place. Now, Larry and his ex-boyfriend, they used to volunteer at a place called Sylvia's Place. It was an LGBT shelter. They did it whilst in university, I think their first year. So Larry told me about this because I was like, I have nowhere to go and no money. And I just got a job like 3 weeks ago. I don't even know if I had my first check at this point. No, probably, yeah. So basically what happened was my last day in my university, my dorm room, I remember I packed up all of my stuff and I had found a storage unit. It was near the water, not too far from my university. So basically what I did was I called a taxi, or I basically put all my stuff on the side of the street, and then I held a taxi and threw all my stuff in a cab, went to the storage facility, moved all of my stuff into the storage facility, and basically I just had my backpack with me with some clothes to change or whatever, and that was about that. Then I went over to Sylvia's place and was like, hey, I'm homeless. Is there any chance that I can kind of sleep here? And they were like, yeah. I mean, obviously there was an intake process, and obviously because I was working but also in university, I was a really good candidate. So I spent like a month at Sylvia's place. And from there, I went into transitional housing in Park Slope, Brooklyn, where you're in like this 3-bedroom apartment and there's like bunk beds in each room. And there's people who are transitioning from the homeless shelter at Sylvia's, which is basically, it was a church and we were on the basement level of the church. So we were like sleeping on mats on the floor. Yeah, there was rats. It was, yeah. And then we go over into transitional housing. Fortunately, before I even graduated from transitional housing to having like another type of transitional housing where I would be able to get my own place through the government, I guess, at an affordable cost, me and my first boyfriend at the time decided to move in together, and we ended up moving in with one of my cousin's ex-girlfriends and her new girlfriend in the Bronx. So we were renting a room from them. Now, at the time that I was at Sylvia's place, they were amazing people. I met Brazil. We called him Brazil because he was Brazilian. And then I met Raciel, who was, I think, Colombian or Cuban. And they were like 2 of my besties. I also met my trans friend, Sasha, who actually recently passed away last year. And I've known this woman since then, this whole entire time. We've lived together. She was amazing. We'll get to Sasha on another episode. But the 3 Musketeers, I would have to say, because keep in mind, I still wasn't that close to Larry. I barely knew him. But I became very close to Raciel and Brazil, and we hung out that entire summer, and we would go to Jacob Riis Beach. We would, go around New York when I wasn't working and stuff. Like, we either hung out or we kind of do our own thing. Now, I did have to sleep in Bryant Park a couple times and on the train, because when you're in transitional housing, there's a certain hour you have to be in and a certain hour in the morning you got to be out. So if you're out, like, I think at 6 a.m., I can't remember, and you are off that day, like most of the LGBT people would go to like these like LGBT centers to hang out or whatever, either get food, play some sort of basketball or sports or recreational activities and things like that. I just felt like I didn't really fit into that scene yet. I still wouldn't say I fit into that scene, but I didn't fit into that scene. So when I wasn't hanging out with Raciel and Brazil, I just did my own thing. So I would study. I didn't do so well on my math final that first semester, so I had to like repeat it. So literally I would go to Bryant Park, study in order to retake my tests and things like that. And when we got to transitional housing in Park Slope, not all of us, because Brazil wasn't staying there and Raciel wasn't staying there either, but they would just always hang around in the community, and that's how I met them. Well, no, Brazil was there for a minute. Maybe Rossiel was there. Maybe that's how we all met and we just kind of gravitated towards each other because there was a few of us who kind of hung out. A few of us. Basically, though, when we got to transitional housing, I was in transitional housing and I met a good group of people like Kendall, who I'm still friends with to this day. And I also met Yaya. She was like this Puerto Rican trans girl, very broad shouldered. She played basketball. We would go to Harlem and play ball. Like, we was in the hood. And she was just like, she grew up in these areas, so she was not afraid to be in any of these spaces or places. And like the people knew her, she knew them. And she also boxed when she was younger. So that's something we had in common because I did kickboxing and wrestling when I was younger. So we kind of like didn't have any issues with having to get down if we had to get down. So at this point, I remember me and Yaya were in the same transitional housing in Park Slope, and we were really cool. We would hang out, and there was this guy named Bilal who for some reason had an issue with me. I don't know what it was. And me, I was raised, and this is what my grandmother always said, don't fight somebody if you know you're gonna win because that makes you a punk or, you know, like a bully or a coward. So I had no intentions of fighting Bilal because I'm like, this boy don't look like he can bust a grape. And, you know, and I'm just like, even if he had problems talking, I was like, you know, he can talk all he want. I'm employed, I'm in school, and I'm going to be up out of this situation. I had decorum of how I dressed and how I kept myself because I would go back and forth from my storage to, you know, switch things out or whatever. Like, I was not with the riffraff. I didn't hang in the streets. I wasn't doing any type of substances or anything like that. I just was on a whole different level. And he had issues with that. And Yaya was like, I'm going to beat his. And I was like, nah, girl, like, leave it. It's cool. Unless he stepped to one of us, there's no reason for us to even get down to his level. So at one point, I think I was like at work or something, and I was leaving work and coming to meet them. And everyone was talking about how Yaya and Bilal had gotten into a fight and how she beat him up. And I was like, oh, goodness. Like, you know, and I'm just thinking, it's just like, I was like, well, that's kind of what he get. He been talking mess about her, talking mess about me and other people just throughout New York City, it seems like, through the LGBT scene. And like, what's wrong with this kid? Mind you, people did have like mental issues, but that wasn't his issue. So we're at the apartment in Park Slope, the transitional housing. And then, yeah, the police knock on the door one night and they come get Yaya and take her up to Rikers. And I've not seen or heard from her since. So girl, if you're out there, if y'all know who I'm talking about, please tell her to come reach out to me. I've been wondering and hoping, praying for her for the best all these years. It's been over a decade. Oh, let's see, next on the list. Okay, so then hanging out with Brazil a lot. Like, Brazil, even though he was younger than me, I was like 19 at this point. Brazil had to be about like 17 or 18. So I felt like an older brother. I felt like I was supposed to be protective of him and people who were around me that were younger than me. But Brazil was on some other stuff. Like, if you've seen Paris is Burning, you see, like, you know, people like the adult workers, street walkers and things like that. Brazil was that type. He was jumping in trucks, like SUVs with like rich old white men and all that. And I was just like, you need to calm down. Like, this is a dangerous life you about to get on. And one day he he was like, oh, we were hanging out, and he was like, oh, let's go to my friend's place in Harlem. So we go to his friend's place in Harlem. And it was, you know, this dude who was, I found to be quite aggressive. And he like wanted me to like take off my clothes and stuff. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So I like leave. And he told Brazil not to bring my bougie back to his place. And I was like, fine by me, whatever. Years later, I found out that Brazil had brought another friend there. And that friend said that person had SA'd them or whatever. So I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is intense. Like, I can't believe that happened. Yeah, eventually Brazil disappeared. Raciel got busy working and things like that. He actually came from a good background. We're friends on social media, me and Raciel, so he's good. I check in on every once in a while. And then after I had moved out, I basically ended up breaking up with my boyfriend and moving back into the dorms for the following semester. And that's episode 3.